Well, I'm going to tell you that stagflation is looming, and we're going into the what you call the full-on survival mode, just like the man over here with the M60 going through the flaming village. This is why you really have silver. Now, silver is not going to be something I think whereby you want to just have it, and I've been emphasizing this for a while, where you want to just have it. Well, I'm going to trade this silver in, go to the bank, and it's going to go up exponentially, trade it for US dollars and buy something else. Yeah, that might be one part of it. But the other side of it where silver's got this unique advantage is you got a lot of disinfectant biological advantages. Even ionic silver has been known to help the body produce stem cells and heal wounds faster. Not only just have the wounds cleansed where there's not going to be any type of microbes in them, but also helps the body produce stem cells in that area, whereby the wound will heal better. Preserves water, preserves all types of foods from micro agents. Now, one obvious thing that's never changed, since Trump has been elected, is that the U.S. debt clock has been going up. There are some facts that some factors that Trump has been doing very good on. I don't even want to mention them here because they might be too controversial for YouTube, because he's really been hammering some of the most evil people going. Now, I know he's still in with the money guys. He's in with Goldman Sachs, but he's still hammering the deep state, quote unquote. But on the opposite side of it is, I'm going to tell you that we're probably going down a very precarious path whereby they're making a major gamble on trying to keep the survivability of the U.S. empire going with the military. This national debt clock is very much worrisome. I think this is the end of the United States, no matter how you look at it, because we just can't keep continuing going on as it is. Now, Trump is, ran as a quote-unquote conservative. Obviously, he's 10,000 times better than what was, offered as the alternative, the other choice. So obviously I took Trump. But the other side of it is that no matter who's in office, I think things have been set in motion that nothing's going to really change the outcome of what's going on, even in the short term. We're heading for what I call stagflation, and I think part of that reason is because of military actions that are going to be happening in the Middle East. You can see that area is heating up. I'm not really against that, but I'm against it if it leads us into conflict with Russia. Whoa, I do not want that to happen, because that's going to be the end of everything. I mean, not maybe everything, but a lot of stuff. Having actions in the Middle East against certain countries is one thing, but if we do it in cooperation with, as a joint maneuver with Russia, great. Obviously, that's probably not going to happen because there's a lot of factors with the pipeline going through Syria and all this kind of garbage, whereby there's different financial incentives for Russia and different financial incentives for America. That's why policies in the Middle East differ. This, I think, is going to one of the things that, this is going to what's going to lead the charge up of oil prices. You notice oil prices have finally been going up because of tensions in the Middle East. Not that the supply has changed, but the more tensions in the Middle East, the more oil prices are going to go up. And you're going to see the commodities start going up. But there's not much left in the consumer with a discretionary spending. Now, to give you a good, inkling of why that, what really shows this is Ford Motor Company. Now, they're not going to drop the Mustang car, but they are talking that they're going to stop Ford Motor Company, which is the largest, U.S. auto manufacturer, or whatever, I think the largest in the world. They've pretty much been selling trucks and SUVs and crossover vehicles and stuff. They're going to stop selling cars, except for the Mustang. They're going to stop selling, like, I don't know what the hell brands they got. What is it, like the Taurus or something? I don't know if they still make that, but they're going to stop selling cars because cars are not selling that well. And if you look at the price of trucks, it's not something that the average consumer is buying because, you know, a cheap truck from Ford is probably $40,000 or $50,000, and you can get a cheap house for that much, for crying out loud, depending on which part of the country you're in. Most people will not buy a mode of transportation, whereas, you know, if they had that kind of money, they would put it on a house, if anything, right? So it's not the average consumer that's really keeping up the auto industry. The auto industry is a pretty big, good slice of the economy. The other thing is we have a problem whereby we're going to have, well, we have another subprime crisis coming up in the real estate market. That's another thing. Now, I do know that, you know, I'm an accountant, but I can tell you that I've never really was like a typical accountant bean counter, and I kind of criticize a lot of those type of people because they're very good at recording, displaying, presenting something in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, maybe analyzing things after a fact, looking at trends, but they don't have that entrepreneur mind, unless, of course, they're somebody that runs an accounting firm. But even in that case, somebody who runs an accounting firm is not somebody who's actually dealing in a business that is manufacturing nuts and bolts hands-on, you know. So everything we see as far as numbers is really not, it's history. It's history, it's what happened before. It's like, it's almost as if, you know, people are not fearful of jumping into markets when all the numbers look great, and actually that's the time probably you shouldn't be doing it. When all the numbers look bad, that's the time you should jump into it maybe. Usually it's like that. It's the inverse of what everybody else is doing. But people's minds are, you know, set right now that things really aren't that bad. But underlying the issues, there is a lot of problems. As a matter of fact, when I talked about the auto industry, a lot of the cars that were sold and the trucks that were sold, they're defaulting on a lot of the loans. And when the markets, when the interest rates start going up, which are starting to go up very slightly, we're going to have a major problem again in the housing market where people are not going to be able to pay off their mortgages. There's going to be another subprime crisis going on. So, you know, anybody that could see and analyze beyond just recording history, you know, making a graph and presenting a nice, you know, financial portfolio of what happened in the past, it's not the same as looking towards the future. Now, I'm not saying I'm looking towards the future with a negative attitude, but I'm just looking at it from reality. The reality is, you know, the debt clock is one of the biggest things right there. But we still have major problems whereby there's not that much money available with discretionary spending amongst the average consumer. There's a lot of money available with the too bigs to fail, and they have been investing in assets that are investor class assets. That's one of the reasons why Donald Trump's properties have went up a lot, because he has the prime type of commercial real estate that's considered an investor type asset. But then even when he brags about his $10 billion worth of wealth, you know, it's not really accurate to say that, because he's talking about the current market value of his assets, and that's not by, you should not be doing that with generally accepted accounting principles unless the market value has significantly declined from the book value. You always say the book value. Now, most people are very much ignorant of what's going on. They really just immerse themselves in whatever pleasure is within the next 24, 48, 72 hours. Most people are not looking for, look with an eye to the future in a what-if situation. Now, people that are into silver are obviously looking for the situation in a what-if scenario whereby, you know, what happens if the dollar depreciates greatly in value? Now, that may happen because the USA is actually, it's like a gambling casino in a lot of ways. Well, I mean, that's not a perfect analogy, but I forgot the guy's name, but he was he was a top person in Bank of America. He's saying that the U.S. Treasuries, the debt that's being bought on the markets, it's mainly being bought by the central banks. In other words, the Fed is issuing debt, and the Fed itself, through the central banks, is buying up its own debt to keep up demand. I don't know how that's going to work, because the assets that are being shown on the balance sheets, even when they had the bailouts, where people bought up, when the Federal Reserve bought up troubled assets, the Troubled Asset Relief Program, TARP, I don't even know how they're going to, unwind those balance sheets, as they call them. How would you sell off those assets if you bought something? In other words, if you bought something, somebody bought $1 million worth of properties, and they became worth $50,000, and the Fed comes along and says, well, we'll give you $1 million for those properties so you don't go under. How is the Fed going to resell those properties for $1 million? They're shown on the books at $1 million because that's what they bought them at. But how are they going to get rid of them off the books? In other words, everything is just paper and fluff. It looks good on paper. It's kind of like a wheeling dealing casino game where things are just moving so quickly that when the musical chairs, if they ever got interrupted or stopped for one point in time, it would be revealed that, hey, maybe the U.S. debt is a bunch of junk bonds. That's what somebody's been saying. I forgot the guy's name. He was very high up in Bank of America, but he says 10 years from now, he doesn't give a damn if they're giving you 50% interest on those bonds. They're not going to be worth anything. And maybe that's true. I'm thinking so too, because how can this mathematically keep going with the U.S. debt clock the way it is, and with the Federal Reserve basically repurchasing its own debt? How is this going to keep going? Now, we've been talking about this for freaking years. It's amazing it's been going this long. But one of the things they talked about where it's critical point of non-return is the $24 trillion U.S. debt on a national clock. It's over $21 trillion. So I'm assuming during the Trump administration, with all the military expansion and possibly more conflict in the Middle East, which will cause more money going into the military defense budget and all this garbage, well, it's going to bring up that debt clock to where the point of no return is. I'm going to tell you that I think people really need to just get the hell away from, okay, I'm bringing a presentation here on YouTube, but I think a lot of people need to get the hell away from a lot of what's going on the internet and just get back to hands-on doing things that they need to do, whether it's something small that you do every single day, whatever it is. Just get out there and do something that can be beneficial for you in the future, that can maybe be a safety net. Back in the day, I think people were far more active than they are today. Today, people are on their cell phones, people are on the internet, people are constantly sitting on their ass. They're not actually actively engaged in things. Like old girl here is sitting on his old, I don't know what the hell is this, pan shovel or something. And that's what it looks like to me, with a Springer front end. People were, I think, far more alive, even back from 1970 before. I don't know what's going on with our health problems today, but people have not been as active today as they have been. They're a lot smarter in manipulating their smartphones and looking up stuff on the internet, but that does not put something directly where you need it. What you should be doing is you should be thinking like this camel with the hump. Now, silver could be part of the thing that you fill up in a hump and you say, well, silver's a good investment. See, silver's a good investment, like I said, for medical reasons only, even if it doesn't go up in value. I think it's going to go up astronomically in value, and it's going to go up like a rocket ship and then probably re-crash again, never crash down to the levels it'll be at today. But it's got some other things about it that are extremely unique. It's like you put a little colloidal silver in some type of drink that you're afraid might go bad due to microbes, and it'll stay fresh for many days longer. I mean, you can't do that with gold. You can't do that with palladium, platinum, or whatever, right? Maybe you could do that a little bit with copper, but nothing else. Nothing else. That's why silver has got this. Once people figure this out, everybody's going to want 10 ounces, and there's not even enough for people going to even have 1 ounce. That's just how it is. Silver can help heal the body by helping the production of stem cells. That's why these silver bandages that some of these bandages that are impregnated with silver, they're not just antimicrobial, but they aid in healing by helping the body produce stem cells right in the area where it's needed through ionic silver. Now, I'm going to tell you that I think the dollar right now is actually since Trump has been in office, like the dollar's not really bad, on the index, but since the trend is, since Trump took office, except for the very beginning, the dollar index went up strong. But since I'd say his inauguration onward, the dollar has lost a lot of value in relation to other currencies, even though the other currencies are also debt-based. Now, we're not in a predicament where it's, lost most of its value or anything. But dollar index is below 90, and it was over 100 when Trump took office. Now, I'm not saying that's his fault. What I'm saying is that's a trend that's going to continue to happen, and we've actually should have seen the metals go up by that percentage that the dollar went down, and we haven't. And that's not because the metals are a bad investment, but obviously it's the same game. It's always been going on. They've been artificially suppressed. There's going to be a time when this artificial suppression is going to fall apart. It just can't go on forever. It's an optical illusion. That's all it is. It's been said a million times over, but it's still an absolute fact. It's an optical illusion as far as I know. If you go and trade your silver in, if it's 1674 or whatever the hell it is, that's what it is. But the deal is that that's not really the underlying worth of it. It's what's going to happen to you right now at this particular time. But it's something whereby it's just like when I was talking about, like, give an example of Ford Motor Company. They want to show that they're making all these great sales and all this kind of garbage. There's a big glut in the dealerships and stuff. And eventually it comes out that, oh, wait a minute. It's like you could stretch things out so long, and sometimes that's good if you just need a temporary fix. But that's the same kind of deal that's going to happen with gold, silver, platinum, and palladium. Now, palladium's been doing very well because of tensions with Russia. But one of the other problems we have in this nation is this: we actually have a brain drain in some of the most essential educational functions. Which is mathematics and English. If you look at the developed nations here, like Finland and Japan, are heads and shoulders above the United States in mathematics. Pretty much all the European nations, talking in the age group from 16 to 34, which is the millennials pretty much, mathematics and also English skills are far behind in the United States. Now, if you look at two skills that are extremely important, it's the ability to communicate, and it's also the ability to grasp information and understand instructions, which is English, and also mathematics, which is applied to like physics, engineering, building, structural, how do you make structures and things like that. Mathematics is pretty much applied to anything that you do. Having a lack of basic skills means that you actually have a lack of basic skills in survivability. And this is one of the biggest problems we have in the United States. It's not just a matter of we got a funny money, artificial economy, but we also have a lack of brain power now in the United States amongst the younger generation. And why this is, I don't know. Maybe it's in the water, maybe it's in the plastics, maybe it's in the plastic bottles that people drink mineral water from. Maybe it's in air fresheners. Maybe it's in a toothpaste with fluoride. I don't know. Or maybe it's just in a Kool-Aid. Drink it. But since we went into the modern age in the United States, it seems like everything went down. Like people's hormones are all out of whack. People are heavier. And, you know, if you look back even in the 1960s, during the hippie era, in Woodstock and those pictures, you never saw really hardly any fat people there. And those people weren't exercise freaks. They were just out there smoking marijuana, getting stoned, right? Well, you know what happened? Since that time, we got the new modern era of not just pharmaceutical medicines, but the way foods are packaged and processed. And that might actually have a lot to do with the diminished brain power of the younger generation in relation to other industrialized nations. And this is actually going to be a problem for survivability. So, and obviously, you know, I can tell you, I think it's not by accident. I think it's all by design. So if you look at you go down to the Lizard Lounge and you listen to what the elitists have been discussing recently, you're probably going to overhear them. I'm just kidding, but you know, you could probably overhear them discussing how we dumb down the population so we can keep control of them, you know. So anyway, but the deal is that, you know, when we have in this problem with what's coming up with stagflation, stagflation is going to mean this. It's going to be sort of like the time when Jimmy Carter was in president. Not that it was really his fault. It really came, I think he inherited Nixon's problems. But what happened was high commodity prices, right? And there was inflation whereby consumer price index was going up in the things that you need. Food, you know, gasoline, energy. But items that were big ticket items that you did not need, like automobiles and furniture and replacement appliances, if you say you want to get all brand new stainless steel appliances for your kitchen and in your washing machine, all this garbage, well, those type of items went down in price. But the essentials went up in price. That's where I think we're heading. And that may create a political climate whereby Trump will be a one-term president. And despite some of my criticisms of Trump, I am very glad he's in office versus the Wicked Witch of the West. I can tell you that right now. And I can tell you that if he does not get in for a second term, because, you know, since he's the incumbent president, he's going to be the choice for the Republican, you know, election in 2020. If he does not get in, we're going to probably see a blatantly communist, socialist, collectivist president that's going to bring the United States down so quick from 2020 to 2024 that all these doom and gloom predictions are going to come about. So by then, I'm hoping to get the hell out of Florida, possibly. And, you know, actually, I want to tell you a little bit about some of my plans, because I did buy land up in northeast Tennessee, almost 10 acres. But I started looking in North Georgia and also southeast Tennessee, very close to Georgia, North Carolina, that, you know, actually in Georgia, in Tennessee, like, I mean, within maybe 10 miles, maybe 2 miles, maybe 2 miles from the border, right? That border right there. I was looking at, there's a lot of places down there that you can get for like $35,000 with the home on it already, over an acre and all this kind of crap, with the well and the septic and all the electric installed, and you can just freaking move right the hell in it. And that would be cheaper for me to do and a lot less work than try to freaking put a place on the 9 acres. So I can keep the 9 acres and either have a place in North Georgia very close to Tennessee, or North Georgia very close to North Carolina or South Carolina, or Tennessee very close to Georgia. And in other words, you just buy it and you're done with it. You know what I mean? You're done with it. You don't have to do nothing, basically. Well, not anything, but it's already physically there. So I'm trying to make a smart move. And, the place up in northeast Tennessee, I just might put a arch-type cabin on it, maybe a steel gable roof Quonset hut type thing with log facing on the front and back. So, it's impervious to all the elements. Now, one thing, a lot of times with the doom and gloomers and the preppers, people are too much focused in on the stuff that can go wrong. Like, in other words, you fear death, but you don't want to live life. Don't be like that. You know what I mean? That's asinine. You want to live life, and you want to freaking enjoy things, but you don't want to live in a dream world. To be quite honest, I think the elite themselves are the ones that are in the dream world. And, if you look at people like, I've noticed this now. I've not worked for people that have been billionaires or anything like that, but, people are in a artificial, bubble when they get a lot of money. I can tell you about somebody I know that just bought a $7 million second house in Boca Raton, Florida. And, I think about that, and I think to myself, well, that's nice, but, one of the least survivable areas in the entire country is South Florida. And, they bought this $7 million second house in South Florida, and they got the bigger house up in New Jersey. I also could think that my cousin who lives out on 8 acres in the northwest of New Jersey with a stocked pond, he doesn't have much money, but has generators and propane and knows how to hunt. If the crap really went down, my cousin would survive. He doesn't have much money. He used to be a former M60 machine gunner in Vietnam, by the way. He would survive, and a guy that was down there in the $7 million house in Boca Raton, he would not. So, a lot of times these people are living in inflated, domains, whereby they're almost like this castle up in the air that can come crashing down all around them all at once, so, I don't know. But bottom line is, and this is the one thing that really burns me up the most, though, about when things go wrong. When the government boot is on your throat, whether it's a left boot or a right boot, it's of no consequence. This is why I am neither a conservative or a liberal. I think both conservatives and liberals are kind of like myopic-brained fascists that want to rule your lives. My whole contention is, do your own thing. And as long as you're not hurting anybody else, do whatever the hell you want. It's not anybody else's business what you do. It's not anybody else's business to direct your life or tell you what you believe in. Sometimes that gets me mad with Christians, too. Like, am I supposed to believe this and that and whatever? Do whatever you want. It's your thing, and I have my thing. It's whatever. But I'm not... I could say it could, I guess I get more annoyed with liberals than conservatives, but I do get annoyed with conservatives quite a bit. And honestly, that when things go down and everything's bad, people are not going to be worried about this kind of garbage. What you think and what you're doing, people are just going to be worried about, food, clothing, shelter, and survivability. And during the times of stagflation, survivability is going to be like the key word, because how are you going to pay for gas in your car if it's $5 a gallon or something? Or how are you going to pay for heat for your home? Like, I have that Perfection 1550 heater that was patented back in 1913, and I got hundreds of gallons of diesel oil, and it runs fine. I can heat my house forever with that thing. I got freeze-dried foods and stuff, and generators, and a well transfer box where I can run my well off a generator. It's like if everything the plug was pulled on everything, I could survive for many months. But most people, it'd probably be 48 hours if they're lucky. So, and honestly, I'm going to tell you another thing. Besides, I should add this. If, people are, when you're investing in silver, and I say it has not just it's going to explode all at once at one point in time, very unexpectedly as usual, and the bubble will prick again and go down. But and again, silver is the only thing that's out there that's a precious metals that has all these antiseptic and biological uses, whereby these other metals don't. I mean, yeah, there could be colloidal gold, but silver is beneficial in so many ways to the human body, and also even if it's not just for the human body, but as an antiseptic to keep water purified much longer, and going stale and all this garbage. It's in a realm by itself, and that alone makes it worth a lot just for survivability. But the other side of it is what you should be stocking up on is a lot of vitamins, minerals, and supplements. Because if you ever did run out of food, you can survive on water, provided you have body fat, good amount of body fat, and most of us do have plenty of body fat. You can survive on water as long as you have plenty of vitamins and minerals and herbs and things like that, of the essentials that the body needs. There's an example of a guy that was like, I saw it was a video, not that I would try this. God, it was crazy. The guy was like 400 something pounds, and he went, I think, 387 days on coffee, water, and tea, and I guess herbal teas maybe, and vitamins and minerals and supplements without any food. And he went all the way down to 180 pounds, lost like, I don't know, 275 pounds it was, or some crazy thing like that. But, you can survive a lot longer without food if you have the supplements. And a lot of people aren't thinking about that. It's weird that you really could. Not that I want to try that route, but but it's good to know. It's good to know. And I figured I'd throw that tidbit in here, because you're probably not getting that from other silver videos, and I don't want to make a separate video about surviving without food because I think that might be a little too controversial, as a separate subject. But if you absolutely have no access to food, or you have access to very, very little food, having high-quality supplements and vitamins on hand with the minerals, the trace minerals, and all those things that are actually even sometimes difficult to even get with the foods the way they're processed today, having that stuff on hand could help you actually thrive during the survival time. As a matter of fact, just as a note, the ratio to calories of the actual food nutritional value is what makes us live longer. In other words, if we restrict calories and we have the same nutritional content in the food, we actually will live longer. Every single mammal out there that's been tested that restricted calories by 30% lived 30% longer. We haven't tested humans with that, but more than likely that would be the same thing. So in other words, people that eat a lot of food, like in other words, if you're actually probably in a survival situation and you didn't have enough food to eat and you're thinking, oh my God, this is terrible. If you have a lot of vitamins and minerals and you have good, fresh, clean water that's not out of bottle, plastic and all that garbage, like you don't want to have your water in bottled plastic, you're going to probably be way more healthy than when you were not in a survival situation. Although you might not feel too good at first because, not having that chocolate donut is not going to be too good, So, but they're not being, bitten and getting out of that mode that you've been in is not going to be very good either, too, because it'd be a period of an adjustment. But you will survive. You will survive. That's another thing you should get besides just silver. Matter of fact, you should stock up on tools, fuel, axes, shovels, saws, anything like that you can build, building materials, roofing materials, tarps. Actually, even if you buy tarps, it's good to have a 5-gallon pail of roofing, reflective aluminized roofing paint. So if you ever have it to make a shelter out of a tarp, and say you've frame out a cheap structure or something like that, and you put a tarp over it, you want to make that tarp last. If you have aluminized roofing paint and you paint that tarp with it, that tarp will last umpteen years. Umpteen years. A lot of stuff like that. So, you don't want to have, silver on the brain. Like, silver, silver, silver. Silver is the only thing. That's why I don't like these silver channels sometimes. Like, my channel is like sort of a silver channel once in a while. But I talk about many different things because it's almost like, I don't know, it's almost like saying vitamin D or vitamin D is great for vitamin C or vitamin D is great for the body, which they are. It's like saying silver is a great investment, but you just can't live off one thing. That's just how it is, right? But the writing is on the wall. The situation that we are going to run into, I think, is going to be worse than what would happen during Jimmy Carter's time. Now, Jimmy Carter, I don't think was actually a bad president at all. Actually, he probably had far more morals than anybody else. He sure inherited a lot of problems, and, that got him out of office. That could possibly be the same kid situation with Trump, because the economic conditions is really what dictates who wins the next election most of the time. And we are going into what I consider survival mode. Just like the M60 machine gunner walking through the burning village. It's not going to be easy. Right now, it's pretty easy because we're just talking about it. And, as we speak today, I've been doing a lot of other things besides playing around with this YouTube stuff. I was out there revamping my utility trailer with busting the rust off it, pulling off the rotted, wood that was on there, hitting it with rust-killing primer, then truck bed lining. I want to get some stainless steel bolts so they don't rust, and I was coating up the wood and stuff, and just doing prepping stuff and make sure all the lights on it work. Put some reflective tape on there for safety. Like, I'm always doing something. I'm always doing something every single day. Changing the fuel lines on the diesel generator, changing the oil on the diesel generator, putting new spark plugs in the gas generator, changing the oil on the gas generator. There's stuff I'm constantly doing. JB welding, an oil leak repair in the Sebring convertible. I don't know. I mean, just millions of different things I'm always doing. And it's like, I put up the Confederate flag. Yeah, well, that was a fun project, actually. I like doing that one. But, you don't want to be stagnant. You want to constantly, and it's like, if you can't, I'm going to tell you this, honestly, every freaking time I go to do something, I keep finding that it becomes way more involved than I expected when I started. It's like I figured, I'm going to do this, it's going to take this, and I'll be done with it tomorrow. And I go out there and I'm like, this is wrong, that's wrong, this is wrong. But I always say, well, screw it. I'm going to do it right. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go freaking store. I got to get this. I got to get this. I got to get that. Oh, I forgot this. And I just go ahead and do it right. Because when it's done right, and it lasts for umpteen years. There's stuff that I got. Sometimes I even have water filtration straws and things that are like bagged up. And they're hanging up on these, hooks. They're in the plastic Ziploc bags and stuff. If I need to get some contaminated water and I don't have time to go put it through filters or like my other filters, or I don't have time to boil the water, I don't have time to make colloidal silver, I got filtration stuff I can just drink through, get rid of the problems in the contaminated water. Because water is one thing you definitely want to have, very essential to life. But I have all my stuff ready. I'm always doing stuff. And it's not like I worry about it. It's sort of like, it's just like a little hobby. And a lot of times, it saves me money. Now, obviously, if I was a moonshiner, I could probably make a lot of money selling moonshine to some crazy woman like this that like to drink, but that would be the Russian women when they come over here. But anyway, no, I'm just kidding about that. Oh, by the way, I was talking to somebody. I want to say this on the air. I don't know if you're going too long, but I want to tell you this. I was in Walmart last week, and the guy behind me had a case of beer. I says, "Man, too bad you couldn't freaking uh, make your own beer here in Florida, because they used to be the #1 moonshine state in the whole country, Florida itself, because of all the waterways and access to the swamps, and before they had, GPS and satellite and all these crazy cameras and, heat-seeking devices where you could find you out there in the water. Florida was big-time moonshining. It was even more so than Tennessee and Georgia and, North and South Carolina in the mountains. But, they made it illegal as all hell over here, except for 15 different licenses. And you know what this guy told me? He says, "Oh, man, my nephew freaking makes this stuff left and right. He bottles up the beers, the wines." I says, "What about the hard alcohol?" He goes, "Does that too. Makes his own labels and sells it." I guess it's still going on in Florida. I was like, damn, man, that pretty much surprised me. But I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it. Where there's demand, there's going to be a supply. And, that's just the way of the entrepreneur. The people that are the bankers are more or less casino owners and gamblers. But the ones that really create stuff are like you and me. And the ones that create stuff, we don't need the gamblers. We don't need the casino owners. If somebody wants to tell you you're going to get rich quick, ignore them. With silver, it's probably going to happen at one point in time where it's going to explode like a rocket ship and then, crash or maybe explode and make 50 zigzags to the top where you never know it's going to come down permanently. But with silver, you really can't go wrong, again, because of the antimicrobial benefits and the health benefits and the ability to produce stem cells. So, one of the things you really want to watch for the most is you want to stay healthy. And no matter how bad the economy is, as long as you can keep the food, fuel, and, shelter, and without getting in debt and not having any kind of safety issues whereby, the bank's going to take you over, well, you're going to be doing fine. And that's one of the reasons to get into a lot of this prepping survival stuff, because a lot of times it can save you money whereby you could do something on your own and you do not have to hire somebody to fix your plumbing, to fix your door lock, or fix your car, or fix the wiring in your house because you blew a fuse or something, or you got to change a light switch or something. You know what I mean? A lot of people can't do this type of stuff. That's why it's good to do prepping, because once you learn all these skills, you're pretty self-sufficient. That's how people used to be. And, one thing I could say about the internet is a lot of times you can find a lot of these DIY MacGyver things on the internet. And that's been a focus of my channel from day one. Health and how to do things on your own, not just silver. But again, silver is, right now I could see it's going to go up a lot because of what's happening in the Middle East. When oil freaking takes off, gold is going to take off, and then silver is going to take off, and then it's going to surpass both gold and oil in percentage gains. But it's going to be a rocky road on the way up. But you don't want to be concentrating just on that. Because if you just concentrate only on silver, you're about as dumb as the people that are living up in this ivory tower where they think they got the world all figured out. You do not want to be, somebody that's only concentrating on silver and silver only as their be-all, end-all, that's it. You are just about in the same situation as those elitists. You're finding yourself, you have a false sense of security. If silver went up to $75 an ounce, I'd say that'd be getting pretty damn dangerous if it ever did, right? But people are going to have a very, very, and maybe it'll go past that. Maybe it'll go to 500 or whatever. I don't know what it'll do, but you know what happens? That's when you get that false sense of security. You're going to be just like the elitists, just as bad as them. That's why you always want to stay in that prepping mode. But then again, you don't want to be a worrywart. You want to be, somebody that rejects the government's boot, but you don't want to not live life. That's how I look at it. Anyway, over and out.